rustling in the leaves. Though I know I should go out and track it down, I just pull all the curtains tight. The sound is getting nearer. Footsteps make it rather large. I shrug and promise that you were gone. You must remember I had never been so lonely. You must remember I had never felt so alone.
All right. Good evening. And joining me this evening is Ezra Gale. Kind of a funny story how I found out about this project. I received a PR press release through one of my emails, and I, was reading it, and I saw that he was a local, and he just lives probably about an hour or so south of where I live here in Albany, and I'm kind of familiar with the Kingston area where he's based. He's a multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, singer, and producer, and who records and performs as the Eargoggle. And recently he had a Kickstarter, I believe, for his new album, and there's a comic book part for it. So let me bring Ezra in, and we'll find out more about him and his project.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. Hanging out in my music studio, talking to you about comics and music. I can't think of a better night,
I know. I mean, before we, kind of get it, I think when I think of comics and music, one of the things that I automatically comes to my mind is the Tori Amos comic book tattoo. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh no, I don't know. I thought you were going to say heavy metal. Like the Ralph Bakshi and the, that was my touch on. I guess I'm kind of dating myself by saying that, but what's the Tori Amos one? I got to know about this.
It's kind of like a graphic novel for her one of her albums.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So that's kind of when I was reading the press release about your project, that was kind of the picture in my mind I got, but we'll see.
Oh, nice.
But before we get into that, how about tell us about your history with comics and music?
Well, I mean, I've always been into both of them, and I've never combined them until now, really. I mean, I've been a musician since high school, really, in bands, and played all kinds of music, mostly as a guitar and then bass player, and I play a little bit of everything, but those are my main instruments. And growing up, I mean, I was an X-Men geek, in high school, and then as I got older, I got a little more into more indie comics world. I was really into like the Elf Quest books, if you remember those, and and then at a certain point, I don't know if it was like college or somewhere around there, I kind of discovered all these comics that were about like real people, like Love and Rockets, and there was one called Hate, like Peter Baggy's Hate, and the Daniel Close books, all these the Art Spiegelman books, of course. And then it was like, oh wait, like you can do this with comics. You can just draw about like our life, like your own life. Like you don't have to be a superhero in like a tight outfit. Like what? That was kind of a revelation for me. So since then I've kind of like dipped in and out of it, but I've always really been kind of loving the graphic novel format, and just I've always been reading comics and kind of checking out what's going on. So yeah.
So am I correct that the current project that you're promoting now was a Kickstarter?
It was, yeah. So we did that. And that was successful, and that was great. That it kind of made it happen and made me just sort of motivate and meet a lot of people and kind of like really focus and get it going. It was, I brought some, I can show you what it is. I brought some props
Sure.
Because everybody likes props, right? I mean, but so what it is, because I thought this would be useful. This is the record, right?
Yeah.
And it's a double album, folds out with all this great comic art, and then it comes with this comic book right here, which is this. So this is record 1. This is the first record, and then you flip it over, and this is the second record, and then you've got every song has its own comic. So so the songs have and all the text is just the lyrics to the songs, and it's all these different artists who are doing, their interpretation of whatever the lyrics mean and the song is about. So it's been a crazy project of meeting like tons of comic book artists and working with them to sort of interpret each song, which has been amazing. So it's like an anthology style book.
So what inspired you to take on this, project, blending your, love of music with comics?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think looking back, I've always been kind of interested in combining music with other things. You take music and film, and that's like a music video, and music and theater becomes a musical. And that's sort of a good example because maybe you're like me and you have young kids who are obsessed with the Hamilton soundtrack, say, and you've heard those songs like a billion times. Mm-hmm. And then, eventually you see the show and it's like, oh, and you see the set design and you see the characters and the costumes and you see them moving around the stage and you're following the story more. And even though those songs, it becomes something different when you see it like acted out and you see this whole visual aspect. So I kind of always wondered, well, okay, what would that look like if you combined music with visual art, some kind of art? Like, how would you do that? How would you have their, music exists sort of as sound in time, and art exists as, as in a place, like as a visual thing. So how would you do that? So I kind of had reached this point during the last couple of years. Maybe you heard about it, but there was this thing that happened where everybody stayed home for a while and nobody went out and did anything. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's just me.
No, never heard about that. What happened? Tell me.
Yeah. So I found myself basically with a lot of songs because I couldn't go out and play gigs, and it wasn't that I had more time on my hands to have young kids at home. I basically had less time, but I definitely had kind of I put all my creative energy into finishing all these songs and writing some new songs. And I ended up with this batch that was like a lot of kind of stories and narratives and stuff. And so I started thinking like, okay, if I had artists interpret this, what would it be like? And then I don't really remember when it sort of hit me, but like, wait a minute, maybe this is a comic. Maybe these are, and then I just, I couldn't stop thinking about like, okay, this song and these lyrics, like, yeah, I could see this, being this character or this character. And then it was a long process of kind of finding artists to do each one and kind of just letting them sort of run with it, kind of like getting an initial idea and then just seeing what they did with it,
So how did you go about, finding artists for the project? Because I talked to a lot of different people, and there's a lot of different, especially with like the these anthology style things. I'm just kind of curious because I noticed that there's a lot of different styles in the in the comic.
There is, which is intentional. I was really trying to find artists who I didn't want the whole thing to be like a very typical kind of superhero style of art. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just kind of wanted to have the songs are very different. There's like stuff that sounds more indie rock. There's some world music stuff. There's like some David Bowie sounding stuff. There's, I've always just been interested in lots of a variety of music. So I wanted the art to reflect that. So I have a high school friend named Colin Devonshire who's a comic book writer now. He has this great zombie apocalypse book called By the Time I Get to Dallas. He's basically the only person I know in the comics world, or he was the only person I knew. So I reached out to him and I was just like, dude, here's my idea. How do I do this? How do I meet these people? Who I don't know. I asked a couple of artist friends, but they weren't comic book artists, or that, they were different kinds of artists and they had no idea. And so he sort of introduced me to a few contacts of his, who introduced me to more artists. And then Colin invited me to this Facebook. There's actually a Facebook group called Connecting Comic Book Artists and Writers, where writers just look for artists and artists look for writers. And so I posted in there. I got a lot of responses, about the project. I got a lot of responses. I just started checking out everybody's work. And just kind of when I saw somebody that I liked, I just saved it. And at a certain point, I had like a few dozen artists that I really liked. And I just started contacting people and explaining what it was. And then it kind of just took off from there. I mean, I honestly can say pretty much everybody who I told about it was like really enthusiastic, because it was, I think, such a different type of thing to be doing, For one thing, the comic book, what I discovered is I think comic book artists are usually they're not usually told like, hey, do whatever, draw how you draw in your style and interpret it how you want to, how you want to interpret it. They're usually told like, okay, panel 1, our hero is standing on top of the building and he's looking down, and panel 2, we see a mugger robbing an old lady, and panel 3, our hero flies through the air, and it's like, this was not that. This was sort of like coming up with a concept and then being like, okay, go for it, show, do your own thing. So everybody was pretty into it. And I kind of, like I said, I was looking for just kind of different styles of art. And every time I saw somebody that really stood out, I contacted them, and then I basically just sent them, the song, which was sometimes just a demo because I was still recording everything. And the lyrics, and that was the only rule, was basically like the only text is the lyrics to this song. And so, you can use that as dialogue. You can have be a narrator. You can do whatever, but that's what there can't be anything else. Which for the most part they stuck to. There's a couple of them that they took a little bit of liberties with it, which turned out to be cool. But for the most part, that was how it went.
Do you have a favorite song and comic book pairing that turned out that
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, they're like my own children at this point. I've been working with them, so it's hard to choose, but there's definitely the first one I got back was actually the first song on the first record, and it's the first one in the book, which is called The Garden. And that's by Luis Santamarina, is the artist, who's from Argentina. And that was really the first one. And that song was something I wrote, like, I guess it was at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was sort of it was just a song about me not wanting to go outside, kind of, just like, I don't want to deal with the world. I don't think there's anything wrong with shutting yourself in your home. And I didn't tell him anything. I just sent him that and sent him the lyrics. And he came back with this comic that's just like this hobbit, this mole person in his little hobbit hole, and being overrun by these tiny little people everywhere. And he's just like, get away. I mean, it was so perfect and so bizarre and so beyond anything that I would have, come up with and told him to draw, that it was just like, oh yes, this is what I'm talking about, And so from there, I think everybody just kind of ran with it in sometimes really, really kind of surprising ways, There's a song called Smash. The artist is named Z Hunti, who's from Morocco. And that one is kind of a world music sort of dance tune. And he just kind of drew this. Again, I didn't tell him anything. I just sent him the song and the words, and he drew this sort of desert party with all these animals, these camels and desert rats and everything. And it was like, I don't know where he came up with this, but it was absolutely perfect. So
nice.
There's a lot of moments like that.
And was this your first experience, doing something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely figuring it out as I went. I mean, like, I've always been a comic book fan, a comic book nerd, but never dived into the other side of it, the making of it. And, I never really thought that I could do something like that, really. Now I have all kinds of ideas of, working on longer projects and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about how the Kickstarter went. I mean, obviously it was funded. Was it your first experience doing a Kickstarter?
It was my first, and it was, I mean, I was definitely learned a lot. I mean, it was successful. There's definitely a lot of work. I would, the one thing I would say is if you're thinking it's going to be a relaxing experience, you're probably wrong. It's just be prepared for that. But it is kind of, I do think people respond to it in a different way, because you have to it forces you to kind of get your ducks in a row in a way. And it forced me to think about the project in a way where I could pitch it and have it make sense and have it be compelling, rather than just saying, yeah, I want to do this cool thing. It's going to mix comics and music. I had to kind of like show the pages and show the songs and really kind of explain. And I think that was really helpful, actually, not only in reaching people to help fund it, but actually in finishing the project and helping me think about like, okay, this needs to happen and this needs to happen, which I think is the whole basic point of Kickstarter, really. It's like, it's not just for funding. I think it's also to help creators kind of organize what it is that they're doing, so that it kind of gets out there into the world. So it definitely did that for me. Yeah, there's a whole, I've discovered, there's a whole, obviously there's shows, there's a whole industry of just on Kickstarter, you can I went down many rabbit holes, and just kind of like researching it. One cool thing though is I have this like shelf of indie comics now that that I contribute, I pledged to and supported, that are now, just rolling in from when I did it. Cause I was just setting out to kind of support fellow people and research like what other pages were. And I just found there's so much cool stuff, so many cool comics, especially for comics. I feel like there's just like a million like really cool books. And kind of sucked in a way, because I would go just trying to check stuff out, and then it'd be like, oh, $100 later, like here, whoops, I kept on pressing like, yeah, I want that one. I want that one. But it works out.
I've fallen down that hole too, so you're not the only one.
Yeah.
So, you've kind of talked about, your music styles. What are your musical influences? Because I get like, you have, from what I've heard, you have a wide range, and that's really cool.
It is a wide range. As far as me, my history, I started out, I played a lot of jazz. I've been in funk bands, but I've always been in rock bands, just always since high school. Then I got really into African music at a certain point. I had a band that played kind of Afrobeat that was based out in San Francisco called Aphrodisia, and we toured around a lot. Went to Africa, actually. Went to Europe a few times with a different Latin band. I got really into Latin music for a while. So I've always been into a wide range of stuff, and really only in the last few years, I would say, I've been doing these albums as the Eargoggle, where I just play all the instruments and it's all my songs. Really, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I think I did the first one, and then there was another one, and now this is the third. And now it's kind of starting to take shape of like all this different stuff that I've done, kind of trying to put it into my voice, which is really fun and exciting, and also just really nerve-wracking, because I've always been in a band where, there was a lead singer over there, or there was like a lead guitarist over here, and I could kind of hide back here playing bass, or even if I was playing guitar, I wasn't like the focus. But now this is definitely me, like, if you don't like it, it's me, you don't like it. And that's kind of, that gets a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's okay though.
But just sitting here talking, I can see behind you, it looks like you have a bunch of guitars, you got some drums and
Yeah. That's
I didn't see the cello. That's a cello, right?
That's a big cello. That's an upright bass. Yeah. Okay. So that's I play that a lot. And there's some keyboards over here, and a row of guitars. I wasn't really trying to point the camera today, so anywhere in here that you
that's fine. I just
there's going to be some instruments.
my wandering eye just kind of picked up.
Yeah, I've got everything in here. This is where I do a lot of my recording, so I've got everything. I like to have everything ready to go, so that when I get an idea, I can just do it. Essentially, because I'm a very lazy person, and if my guitar is like in a case downstairs or something when I have an idea of to play guitar, I probably just won't go get it. You know, that's just me. So, but if it's sitting right here and I can just pick it up, then I'll be like, oh, all right. So it's taken me, 50 years to figure that out, but
well, I can't play an instrument or carry a tune. So, if you had the chance to work with any artist in the comic book industry on a project, do you have any ones that you would be your, I guess, your dream job or your dream project?
Man, that's a really good question, and I'm embarrassed to say that the names I can think of are like the names from when I was a kid, like people like John Byrne who's drawing the X-Men, and who was the guy who took over for the there was a guy that took over for the New Mutants in the 90s or something, who like everybody said ruined it, but I thought he was
Rob Liefeld.
That's who it is. That's who it is. And he had his totally distinctive style, right? It was just kind of crazy.
No feet.
Anyway. Yeah.
No feet and pouches.
Yeah, it was very like undefined. It was just very weird to see that in like a mainstream comic book. But I kind of like that. I mean, I like anything that stands out and is kind of different. I mean, honestly, like the guy and girls that I worked with on this book were just phenomenal, and I would love to do something with them again. And then there's some people that I made contact with who couldn't do it for one, they were just too busy or whatever, who have said they want to work together again. That's kind of what I'm focused on. I am actually working on a new project, which is a rock opera concept albums, and that has two of the artists from this book, Olive Mitra and then Patrick Lugo, who's the both of whom are incredible artists, and they're doing the whole book, and that one's going to be different because it's one story and all the songs. So I am actually already working with some artists who it's like my dream to work with, even though I just met them. But
oh yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where can people find your music or can they pick up the comic book somewhere other than having back the Kickstarter?
Yeah, it's going to be released on April 1st is the release date. It's on Bandcamp right now. I should put the link up on the screen or get it to you.
Yeah. Give me the link. I'll put it up.
And that's the best place to order it. And then you can order either order the digital. It comes in every format. I mean, it's a record and a comic book, but you can also get a digital version of each one of those, or just a digital of the music and then get the comic book, whatever. And then I have been talking to there's some comic book shops in the area. There's one in Kingston. There's one in Rhinebeck so far that have said they want to carry it. And I want to that's just super DUI because that's me walking in there with the book and saying, look, check this out. But so far they want to carry it. So I want to do a little bit more of that and get it to some stores to carry it, because I think it's kind of a unique thing. I've been looking around for just something similar, and I haven't found that many things, like I haven't found many albums that come with a comic book. So I kind of think definitely. It's an eye-catching thing that people are kind of interested in. So
is there maybe anything else that maybe you wanted to mention that perhaps I didn't ask about?
I mean, I think we covered it. I mean, it's been just kind of a real it's been a real joy to sort of enter this world of kind of, I know this is sort of old for comic book creators, but like just having an idea and then to go from having an idea to seeing it on the page in a comic book format is just such an amazing feeling and prospect, and especially when you're working with people who can interpret things sort of better than you could, better than you could plan them out. It's really amazing to see the finished product. And when especially when, working on these songs and art for so long, the last couple of years, really. And then getting the files and organizing it and doing this, with the project, organizing that. But when you get the actual book and like I open the box and I'm just, looking at these things, and like, it's just beyond anything that I could have thought that this would be. I highly recommend it if anybody's out there thinking of, should I do a comic book? Should I not do a comic book? I say, do it. Do a comic book.
This question just occurred to me, and hopefully it makes sense. So has working on this project, made you think differently about how you do your music, or, kind of do your music, your music make you think differently about how it would be interpreted on the, the comic book page?
Yeah, it's actually been, it's very interesting. I mean, for the most part, these songs were all done before I started with the concept. Although there are a couple. There's a song called Crocus that was the last one I wrote. I wrote it right before actually the album was done, and it was about I wrote it last spring, and it's about a crocus under the ground coming out. But it was also sort of as we were all kind of coming out of our homes for that phase of the pandemic, and just kind of we were starting to socialize a little bit more and see people, and it was just sort of a song about that. And then I had in mind, as I was writing the music, like, oh yeah, this could be like an underground person who's like bursting out or whatever. And it kind of informed the way I thought about kind of like recording that song. And then the really interesting thing is I've done a lot of albums, both with bands and then my own. And one thing I love doing in the process is sequencing, picking what song comes where this is the first song, the second song, how they all flow into each other. And so I initially did that with this album, and it was a lot to do because it's a double album, 17 songs and all. And I had an order that made sense to me. And then I started lining up the art for the comic book, and I realized, wait a minute, like, this doesn't make sense as a comic. Like, it doesn't have the same flow. Like, this comic should come after this comic, as a visual thing. And so that informed, I kind of switched the whole order around more based on that, which was a kind of interesting thing that I had never thought about before, so like I would have sequenced the album very differently if it was just the music, but because it's sort of intended to be like the whole idea is that you put the record on and then you sit there with the comic book and you're reading along to each song as it goes. It's sort of like reading the lyric sheet, except it's a comic book. And so, given that experience, it started to make me think about like, oh wait, I think this artist's style would look really cool after this artist, and then this artist would look really cool going next. And so, those two things started playing off each other, and the order got totally switched around, which I think is interesting. And it might, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's going to be weird in both ways, because there was a little bit of compromise in each direction. Like, sometimes the music won out, sometimes the art did. But I think overall, I think it's going to be kind of an interesting experience. I haven't done that yet. I have to admit, I haven't. I mean, of course, I've heard these songs a million times at this point because I wrote them and recorded them and mixed them and everything. But I haven't actually sat. Now that I've got the records, I haven't actually sat down with the book and played the record and like followed along. So I hope it works as cool as I thought it would.
Well, I used to do that with when the lyrics would come in like cassette tapes.
Oh yeah, totally.
Way back in the day, you just kind of sit there and.
Oh sure, yeah. In fact, I have. Oh gee, I wish I had. Well, I could get another prop, but my last two records that I did were not records; they were tapes. Actually, they were released on cassettes, and so and I made sure to put they all fold out with the lyrics, and they're super small. I mean, I almost felt like I should include a magnifying glass with the with the tape or something. But you can do it if you really want to. But I love that experience. I mean, that's something I miss about streaming music in general and just listening to it. I mean, I realize that's the way the world is, and that's fine. But I really I feel like I have a different relationship with music, with the albums that I knew when I had the cassette, you know, and I actually did sit down and like read the lyrics along, or when I had a record and I took it out and I read the credits as the record was playing and everything. You know, that's a big part of these experiences. And that was kind of part of the idea of this, was like, what can I do to make this more than just you know, a piece of music, more than just a bunch of songs that are going to play on somebody's, you know, Spotify or whatever. It's like, I feel like nowadays you have to sort of offer something more. So it's kind of it's an opportunity to do something really cool.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it, you know?
Yeah. So are you planning on doing like any local comic book conventions, or to,
You know,
kind of?
yeah, some of the guys who I've been in touch with, mainly from doing this Kickstarter, and then some of the artists that worked on the book and the people they put me in touch with are doing a lot of that. And I've thought about that. I kind of think I should. I mean, it's you know, it's such an interesting kind of unique thing, as far as I can tell. Like, at least all the comic book people that I've met are kind of like, oh, there's a record with a comic, huh? That's cool, you know. So maybe it would stand out a little bit. So I was thinking about doing something like that. I'm not, you know, it's a weird kind of crossover project, and I'm not really quite sure like how to bridge the worlds of it really yet. I'm kind of trying to figure it out. You know, it's not just a music project, it's not just a comic project. So like, what is it? Hopefully that's good for most people and it gives it more appeal, but I don't really know where to go with it just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, maybe we could set up a booth and have a band at the comic book convention or something. You know, that would be pretty cool. I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, I'll talk to you after we're done. I have an option for you if you're interested.
Oh yeah.
But so where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your album on Bandcamp?
Yeah, Bandcamp, and then the label that it's on is called Very Special Recordings, and there's an Instagram for that where it has a lot of the info, and a Facebook for that, Very Special Recordings, and they've been posting a lot about the release and everything, the links. And I made some videos which are kind of I hate to say it, but like Ken Burns style, with the comics, you know, kind of panning across the pages.
Oh no, I really enjoyed those.
Yeah. Oh, good. You know, just to kind of give a taste of what the experience is as you're kind of like reading it along with the music. Of course, I would love to have an animated, you know, comic version of each song, but that's maybe the next project, you know.
Yeah. And are you on like Twitter or anything? Or
I'm on Twitter, as a Super Hi-Fi Music, which is an old band. But I still use that Twitter handle. Mostly I'm doing Facebook and Instagram through that label, and then the Bandcamp, really.
Yeah. Well, I'll be sure to grab those links for you, and that way I can put them in the show notes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
And you know, just a kind of closing for myself. You know, you can find me on. Well, there's links at the end of the video. I'll put them there. So that's where you can find my forays into the different projects, along with this the interview thing that we do. I do.
Yeah, this is great.
Well, you know, it was great talking to you, and you know, maybe hopefully we'll meet. You know, be able to meet in person someday, since we're so close.
Absolutely, I hope so. That'd be great.
And you know, take care, and you know, when if you have whenever your next project is ready and you want to chat again, then
definitely
would love to have you come back.
Awesome, we'll do that. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This has been great.
Continue to stay safe and stay healthy. I know that a lot of people think it's over, but
yeah. Not yet. No. We're done with it, but it's not done with us. That's that's the problem.
All right. Well, take care of yourself, and have a good evening.
All right. Great. Thanks.
Oh, I know I should go out and track it down. I just pull all that couldn't die. The sound is getting nearer. Footsteps make it rather large. I shrug and promise that you were gone. You just remember I had never been so lonely. You must remember I had never felt so alone.
There's a system that's watching everything you do. The government is collecting records of every phone call in the United States. Everything that you ever typed into that search box. Every private message that you sent on Facebook, every link that you clicked, everything that you liked, they keep perfect records of.
We are the bureau of everything. We watch you work and we watch you say. Your love is deep, but so is our rage.
When all our lights were dead and gone, whisper won't be long now. But your picture, hold it tight. Was it planted just right? The line is slow, the line of code feels the same on my nose. I get so angry looking back. Was I supposed to cry? Outside, I'm lying. Too bad you're alright.
Good dance and spread around until sunlight all around. Bring, tell me, roll along, tell me, your truth, tell me lies, tell me, you are lonely, tell me, you're unhappy, tell me, around the world, tell me, leave his arms, tell me.